Assembly last year, MDOT was able to reduce the level of reductions needed to balance the budget, which is a very good thing. And importantly, with these funds, we were able to maintain commitments to local governments such as yours, and including municipalities, to restore highway user revenues and local operating transit grants. Turning now to this year's draft CTP, the department continues to face significant budgetary challenges because of the state's slow economic growth, rising costs of labor, materials, and revenues that are coming in lower than projections. As one example, the motor fuel tax, the Transportation Trust Fund's largest source of revenue, has come in lower than projected by about $350 million, while at the same time our operating costs are rising by about $300 million. As a result of these financial pressures, the department is limited, but is making strategic investments with those resources to further enhance safety of the system and maintain core operations and services. Getting into the details, this draft CTP is fully balanced and totals $18.9 billion, so we're still doing a lot of great work across the state. But because of the fiscal constraints, we had to make some tough decisions and reductions to live within our means. So looking between this draft and the previous final, that equates to $1.3 billion in reductions. But even with these reductions, we're fully committed to strategically using the available resources to advance state priorities. And that number one priority for all of us, including the Secretary and myself, is always going to be safety. The safety of everyone who's using the system, including those who are driving, walking, biking, and those who work along our network. So with that, I do just want to thank you and turn things over at this point to State Highway Administrator Will Pines.
Well, thank you, Deputy Secretary Biddle, and good afternoon, everyone. As was mentioned, I'm Will Pines, State Highway Administrator, and I also want to take a moment to introduce SHA's District Engineer for District 7, Andrew Radcliffe. He's here right beside me, and I want to thank him for the great work that he and his team do to help support you and your local constituents to meet the needs of the region. It was a pleasure meeting many of you at MACO the last month, and we look forward to continuing the conversations on how we can best support the county. At SHA, we understand the fiscal challenges Maryland is facing. However, I want to assure you of two things. First, SHA will continue to do big things, moving forward with multimodal projects focused on safety, accessibility, and equity. Second, safety will always be our highest priority. This means building and maintaining a system that supports pedestrians, bicyclists, motorists, and all users, including our highway workers. SHA has been a proud partner with our MDOT team on the new Complete Streets policy, and we're taking action with the Complete Streets Leadership Academy projects. This is another key tool in our toolbox as part of our Pedestrian Safety Action Plan, or what we refer to as the PSAP. SHA is underway on our first 5 PSAP locations statewide, and we're hosting public workshops this fall in those corridors. And the information and experience that we gain in those areas will benefit the work that we do across the state to make our roadways safer and more accessible for everyone. Last year, I also talked about my goal to improve and modernize the efficiency of State Highway. Over the past year, we began refreshing our access permitting processes to streamline and improve the review timelines to support economic development in Maryland. This includes closely tracking permits from the traffic impact studies through the plan review stage and all the way to that final permit package. We also have updated our procedures and timelines, and those are public facing in order to provide clear transparency on the process. SHA has not only improved our permit review and issuance timelines from those measures, but we are doing that in the face of seeing an increase of the specific permit requests that we've actually received. We'll continue to explore ways we can continue to work more efficiently to best support local and developer partners. And now I'd like to highlight a few of the local SHA projects and thank the county for its support and partnership on these. During this past year, we completed the resurfacing projects on sections of Maryland 140, Maryland 97, Maryland 27, all in Westminster, and on Maryland 75 heading toward Frederick County. In the Sykesville area, we completed a project to improve drainage on Maryland 851 between Wilson Avenue and West Friendship Road at the Carroll County and Howard County line. We're currently working on Springfield Avenue between Main Street and Warfield Road to upgrade drainage and install new sidewalks. This is a $2.5 million project and is expected to be complete late this year or early 2025. In April, we hosted the public open house on the Maryland 97 Planning and Environmental Linkages Study, or what we call a PEL study, between Maryland 140 and Bachman Valley Road. We anticipate the completion of that study at the end of this year. With the data collected from the PEL study, we will be able to identify breakout improvement projects along the corridor to enhance safety. We continue to make progress on the design of the Maryland 32 from 2nd Street to Main Street, anticipated to be complete in fall of 2025. Construction for the project, though, remains unfunded. We're also advancing the $14 million project to replace the bridges on Maryland 91 over the Patapsco River and Maryland Midland Railroad in Finksburg area. And I appreciate the community's patience in the road closure that started back in April, and we expect to reopen access early next year. And speaking of Maryland 91, the team has continued to evaluate improvements for the intersection of Maryland 91 and Maryland 140 to enhance safety traffic operations. Over the summer, we installed guardrail in the median as a result of the ongoing traffic study requested by the community. And after getting valuable feedback from the residents, officials, and others, we're planning to install new traffic signals by the end of the year, providing exclusive left turns from westbound 140 to southbound Maryland 91. And early in the year, we reduced the speed limit on Maryland 140 near Market Street from 50 miles per hour to 45 miles per hour. Finally, I'm pleased to announce a grant to advance the town of Mount Airy's plan for a multi-use Rails to Trails project. The town will receive $600,000 from the Transportation Alternatives Program to complete design of the plan to convert unused railroad tracks for the trail crossing Maryland 27. While we must live within the means of our budget, as I mentioned before, we are still going to be doing big things. You just heard a lot of them, and those are going to be moving forward along with other important projects and programs. I want to thank you again for your time, and I'll now turn it over to Melissa Williams with the Maryland Transportation Authority.
Thank you, Will. I'm Melissa Williams, Director of Planning and Program Development with MDTA. First, we would deeply appreciate the outpouring of support in the immediate aftermath of the Key Bridge collapse. Our focus now is the Key Bridge rebuild. In the last 6 months, MDTA received a categorical exclusion classification and NEPA approval for the rebuild project, awarded a $73 million Phase 1 contract to Keywood Infrastructure Company as the progressive design builder, and issued 2 RFPs for general engineering consultant and construction management and inspection services. The bridge rebuild will begin construction in 2025 and is expected to be completed in late 2028. I know many of your constituents are feeling the traffic impacts in the 95 and 895 tunnels. We have adjusted the lane configurations at the 895 toll plaza to enhance traffic flow and safety. The I-895 project to replace the existing toll plaza south of the Harbor Tunnel with highway speed all-electronic tolling is unfortunately delayed due to increased traffic on 895. We're developing concepts for a different delivery approach. However, any traffic impacts from construction on Mainline 895 would not start until after the new Key Bridge is open. Lastly, Maryland continues to work with our federal partners to secure 100% federal funding for the new bridge. The MDTA has sufficient cash flow and capital reserves through FY25 to support additional expenses associated with the Key Bridge rebuild. MDTA will be updating our financial forecasts before the end of this year to further evaluate the impacts of the collapse of the bridge. Thank you very much for your time, and I'd like to turn it to Travis from MTA.
Thank you, Melissa, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Travis Johnston, Director of the Office of Local Transit Support at the Maryland Transit Administration. A safe, reliable, and rider-focused public transit system remains key to growing and strengthening our region. It means decreased carbon emissions, a reduction in traffic congestion, and safer streets for our entire region. A robust public transit system also means economic and social mobility. In fiscal year '24, MTA's $1.3 billion in spending had an economic impact of $2.9 billion for our state. That work we did supported over 24,000 jobs across the state. In addition to MTA's investments, our locally operated transit systems are critical partners in providing transit throughout the state. As you may know, MTA has implemented a new funding allocation formula which has made the distributions more equitable and responsive to changes in local jurisdictions' investment in transit service. The new formula benefits Carroll County with an increase of $256,000 in operating funds for FY25. Overall, we invest in transit in Carroll County by providing more than $1.5 million in operating and capital grants to support the local transit system. These grants provide funding for continued preventative maintenance, three new small buses, and a 5-year transportation development plan. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and I will now turn it over to Paul with MVA.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Again, my name is Paul Taylor with the Motor Vehicle Administration. And customer satisfaction has always been the cornerstone at the MVA, and our employees express this commitment by delivering premier customer service every day. If you have interacted with us in the past year, you may have noticed the elevated customer experience that at every interaction. Whether you have reached us by phone or in our branches or online, you have experienced that elevated service. As of August, the agency overall customer satisfaction rate was 99.5%. And by prioritizing efficiency and accessibility, in fiscal year 2024, MVA branches completed 11.5 million transactions, up 6.7% over 2023. So despite the increase in volume, the MVA's average wait time was just 5 minutes. 80% of our MVA transactions, ranging from renewing driver's licenses or vehicle registration, requesting of license plate, titling replacement, were completed online or at our self-service kiosks. So we encourage all of Carroll County residents to sign up for a MyMVA account to take advantage of the many services available online, including accessing their driver's license, vehicle information, checking their vehicle registration status, or applying for disability products. The MVA continues to expand into local communities, including events during National Night Out and conducting law permit testing at Gateway High School. The MVA and its partners remain committed to developing solutions to save lives on our roadways and to reach our goal of 0 fatalities. And that is the only acceptable number. Last year, 12 people lost their lives in Carroll County. And so far this year, there have been 11 fatalities, which is way too much. Earlier this month, Governor Moore announced more than $380,000 in highway safety grants to law enforcement agencies and organizations in Carroll County, including the Sheriff's Office, the Hampstead, Manchester, Mount Airy, and Sykesville Police Departments, to address speed, impairment, and distracted driving, as well as pedestrian and bicyclist safety. I'd like to commend the county leaders for taking action to develop their highway safety plan. It is a complement to the state's plan while addressing the specific need of the community. MDOT will continue to work with our partners at the federal, state, and local levels to develop solutions that saves lives. In closing, many of these MVA accomplishments could not have been possible without the hard work and dedication of our committed MVA employees. As a team, the MVA continues to set the example and raise the benchmark on what it means to do business with a motor vehicle agency. So I want to thank you for your attention, and I'd like to turn it over to Asif.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, Paul. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Great to be back with you again. It's a pleasure to be back in Carroll County. I want to talk to you about an updated economic impact study we completed at the MAA, looking at all of our regional airports, not just here in Carroll County, but statewide. And the numbers are telling, because we look at safety, we look at operational needs, design standards, but the economic value of what your regional airport contributes to the community is equally an important message to share. And so I'm going to focus on that for my brief remarks here. Just in summary, the statewide regional impact, with a caveat, does not include BWI numbers, because the numbers really get slanted if I bring in BWI. But just the statewide regional airports, 33 public use facilities in our state, we generated over 10,000 jobs. This is jobs to our local communities, our local airport, and the surrounding communities. And with those jobs, we also generated over $1.4 billion in economic activity. This includes not just the revenues of on-airport businesses, but also support businesses around the area and in the community. So again, it's a message that we're very proud of, very pleased to see that our airports are contributing to our local areas and local communities. I also want to tie back into our capital program. Certainly, we have $3.5 million this year to support our airports. These programs are generally designed for safety improvements, runways, taxiways, apron work. At Carroll County Regional, we know we have a long-term program with our airport there, and so this year we're pleased to support $11,000 in reimbursement assistance for land acquisition. But we're pleased to continue our support over the years and into the future on the runway extension program that's planned. So thank you for the opportunity to brief you on aviation. Now it's my pleasure to turn it back over to Deputy Secretary.
Thank you, Ashish. So just in closing, I want to take a moment to discuss another economic engine here in Maryland, the Port of Baltimore. It's certainly been in the news quite a bit lately. Melissa hit a little bit on progress with the Key Bridge, but I do want to just provide updates on, port operations in general. So the port is definitely rebounding strongly and is embarking on a master plan that will grow businesses and generate additional jobs. The number of ships and trucks coming and going from the port are just about back to normal levels. However, overall cargo volumes are down a bit due to the channel being out of service for those 2 months. Cruising is back and ships are sailing at full capacity. And this summer was a great step forward with the port's recovery, and we're going to continue to finish out the year with continued progress. So with that brings our presentation to a close, and I'm happy to answer any questions along with the team. Thank you.
Well, I can start. Andrew, thank you for attending and participating in the Nels Acres Forum. Honestly, what I expected to be a dozen folks ended up being about 120. And when you get 120 60, 70 plus year olds, they have something to say, and you better listen. And so we were standing straight up listening, and I appreciate you being a part of that and taking notes and following up very quickly with our team to provide information back to that group. Sometimes the answer is no, but in getting there, getting the expectations out there fast is so important, and you really did a great job in doing that. Because one, I haven't heard any calls from them recently, and they're not shy. And it is very valid. And what we're talking about is the Visiting Angels Nels Acres complex, which is really Fallon Road and Ridenhour going on to 26 on Liberty Road. There needs to be some level of traffic calming, traffic intervention, something, whether that's light changes in the infrastructure. You're the expert along with my team. But I think, if we don't do something, there's an accident waiting to happen because that is going to be more populated area. We have more senior facilities living arrangements just east of Nels Acres, and they're being built right now. So that's just that much more in the community. So just I ask that you take a hard look at what could be done and then move from there. It may not be everything all at once, but if it's something, that at least tells us we're going in the right direction. So one, I appreciate it, and two, I ask that you take a continued look at it. So that's for all of you, but that's at least one of my issues I'll bring up.
No, thanks. It was good to get that feedback firsthand, and we're working on gathering all the data we need to help make those decisions, and we should have some answers here before the end of the calendar year.
Fantastic.
I have a question for Mr. Johnston. If you could go, well, first of all, thank you everybody for coming out here today. Thank you everybody for attending as well. I'm quite interested to know what the future trajectory is for support for local transit funding. As federal recovery funding is drying up and the county's having to resume a greater share of the amount of funding that we provide for local transit, and given the state of the economy, given the fact that we are running a deficit in the coming fiscal year, we're interested to know what assistance will be coming from the state in future years, given that there's a reluctance on our part to want to raise taxes because that obviously harms the people who need to use the transit system the most in order to fund the transit system. So, any information you could share with us, any thoughts about the future trajectory of local funding for transit would be incredibly appreciated.
Sure. I mean, I think first I'd probably focus on the discretionary opportunities at the federal level. We work with all the locally operated transit systems to essentially work with them on their application process, identifying projects, things of that nature. In addition to that, through the bipartisan infrastructure law, we're going to see about a 2 to 3% increase in our federal apportionment. So essentially, each transit system's operating fund should grow year to year just from that increase of the federal funds. As far as on the state side, I think we're working with what we have right now, and we'll certainly continue to look for other opportunities. But again, I think the focus should really be on those discretionary opportunities at this time.
And we are very grateful for the assistance that we do get from the state. We're just certainly interested about, again, the future of how everything's going to work out, given that we know that you guys are facing constraints as well at the state level. But thank you very much for that.
No problem.
And just go in order, or you want me to be last?
Process this time.
Thank you for the intersection 91 and 140. A tough, which you deal with a lot of tough, but a tough intersection, and I'm glad to see it's being looked at this way. And I think you said it looks like the bridges could be open early next year? Is that?
Yeah, so right now, we close them at the end of April, and they had a 9-month window to reopen. We're on track to, so it'd be like the end of January would be the latest.
Okay.
So we're on
Yeah.
track for that.
Good.
Yes.
And we've got some county roads people here. I think more people are detouring on us than on you, and so the sooner the better. We appreciate it.
We got some good feedback from county staff. We tried to put some other signage out there to encourage folks to stay on those routes and even work with some of the mapping technology to force the detour route into people's directions. But
And thanks for Manchester and the crosswalks and the attention Manchester's getting. There's nobody came in late from Manchester, right? Yeah. So I talked to you about crosswalks, and thank you for that support. I didn't talk to you, and I apologize. I mentioned it at Mako, the trees on Main Street in Manchester, and Kevin Wellesley from Office of Environmental Design emailed me and wants to talk tomorrow about that. And I don't know if you're aware of it, but the trees on Main Street are just too big. And we've heard they were spec'd wrong. We heard the guy didn't use the spec, and I told Kevin, Town of Manchester has a set of plans laying there for me if I want to grab them, and he said, I don't think that's necessary, but they're actually, and you know how the main streets are, it's two-edged, it's a state highway, but trees are brushing against people's houses, and what I've heard was you guys told the town manager you can't trim them, there are trees, and you know, and I don't even know if that's correct, but
I'd have to check that for sure.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
they're interested in switching them out, so we were trying to get them connected with the experts in our environmental design office. So.
yeah, and they've just gotten too big,
Right.
and they look good for a while, and that was, my gosh, Main Street was. I know you've told me before, whenever I bring up a job, you were in high school, but I think it was like 20 years ago that Main Street was done. So the trees have lasted a while.
Yes.
But it's time. And again, thank you guys, and thank you for talking at Mako. We ended up cutting out a little bit because the governor said, you got 15 minutes, and we took it. But yeah, thank you, and thank you for the relationship, and Good, bad, and ugly, we talk.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you all for coming out today and the information and updates and the collaboration between both of us. I appreciate all the work that's been done on 140 in the Westminster area. One area I did want to bring up is I know there's some state roads where there's crosswalks around some of the, it sort of crosses some of the main roads within the city limits, and I would like to see if there's a possibility of getting some assistance and look at some of those, because they have been challenging, to say the least, from a number of citizens I've heard in the last year with, and part of it's just being bluntly honest, it's people not being aware of pedestrians. And there's only so much I know we can do, but some of those intersections at night or at dusk, the old type of crosswalk is very hard to visually see. And I think a lot of people are just kind of driving. So, you know, we had one earlier, I guess it was this past year, where we did have a pedestrian get struck in an intersection. So I'm trying to see if we can, you know, try to curb that as much as humanly possible. And I'd greatly appreciate any assistance we could come up with.
Yeah, absolutely. We can touch base afterwards for
absolutely.
the specific locations.
Sure.
Our team can look at them. Be
I
happy
greatly
to.
appreciate it.
And we've been doing that statewide as well. This past year, we upgraded 1,009 crosswalks statewide as a push to try to promote continental crosswalks that are those more visible
Yes.
types. So,
And I know we're not unique to this by any means, but I do appreciate all the help.
thanks.
Again, thank you for coming. I represent District 4, which is the southwestern portion of the county, which also includes Mount Airy. So you'll see on our annual letter to you that the section on Route 27 going through Mount Airy is listed there. There's a lot going on in Mount Airy, obviously, and it's a major corridor to 3 additional counties that we abut up against. So I've got a question really about process, and in this case, I've got an actual use case. In Mount Airy, there is a rather large, extremely large development being debated at this point, up to 600 units. There is another smaller development right off of Main Street that's roughly, I think, 70 or 80 units. So it's really a question of like the chicken or the egg. I'm trying to really understand, and I think people who are watching might have the same question. How does this process going to work in relation to 27? 27 is, for lack of a better term, it's a mess. And that's just a product of growth and people getting to and from work. But I'm just trying to understand a little bit more how the process would work, what has to happen for some of those developments to come in, what comes first, what are the prerequisites that State Highway Administration would insist on, you know, from the town itself, if you will.
Start.
Sure. Yeah, we've actually had the opportunity to meet with the town a few times to talk kind of about that subject in general. And I think as they come in or as those developments get proposed, and we can help as needed, we can work with the town to look at what intersections we probably should be looking at for impacts from the development, looking at existing volume and the volume they might expect to add to it, and see what potential improvements that development might need to make to help things operate adequately. But certainly happy to have any of those conversations with yourself or the town with any proposed development to see how we can best make it work, because 27 can be challenging.
Okay. Let me just add too that just process, not this location, but just generally process. So we have an access permit manual. It kind of defines all of the things that the developer will need to submit to us. One of those is a traffic impact study that will show their specific impacts to the roadway. We are not in the business of telling developers that they're not the right fit for the location or any of that. Like, our role is to make sure that their specific impacts are mitigated. They're not fixing all of history on the roadway. They're kind of dealing with pedestrian safety issues at the frontage of their property and the surrounding traffic impacts that they sort of, the delta between what was there before and the after. We do get a lot of counties that want to sort of use, especially when there's multiple developments happening at the same time, there's requests like, hey, can you pressure these different developers to kind of like fix the corridor? The answer to that is no. With it, you know, what corridor larger improvements need to go through the normal budgeting process. We do need to be fair to developers. What some counties do, though, is in a recognition that certain corridors have a lot of development that's planned, the zoning is sort of set up for growth. They do create like a pooled fund, and they'll charge a fee to a developer individually that will accrue enough funds to be able to, for the local entity to apply those funds to a larger corridor improvement, knowing that those funds may not be available immediately from the state. And so it's kind of like a policy that's part and parcel with the county's growth strategy and zoning and those types of issues. But we, again, our role in this is not to discourage development. We sort of facilitate effective approval for their development only.
All right, yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks for that perspective.
And I forgot one thing, and I promise this is the last. Marcia Herbert, president of the Board of Education, came in the first week of school. Well, first, I want to compliment the state, MDOT, on what they do with walks and some things around schools to keep it as safe as possible. Manchester Valley is just below Manchester on 30, and 30's a little ugly there. And hopefully a developer does the far side and we can make him do some stuff. But there's no real walks. And the first week of school, we had a student hit. And I fully recognize kids are not going to walk to the red light in Manchester to cross and come back down. He was hit right there at Manchester Motors crossing the street. So two-edged, Mrs. Herbert. Correct. Maybe we need to look at transportation for these kids if it's too dangerous, and then if you guys could look at anything on, and I don't know that you'd want a crosswalk at that first intersection, Maple Grove Road, because there's no sidewalks on either side, so where are they crossing to? But I don't know what we can do to make that safer.
There are some grants in the bipartisan infrastructure law that actually local entities are the only ones who are allowed to apply for them, and some of those are for making that school accessibility connectivity. We'd be happy to follow up with our team to kind of explain some of the grants that are out there that might make some funding options available.
Thank you.
Kenny, if I can add a couple of things. One, since you talked about grants and sidewalks, I've been saying for a long time, Piney Elementary, there is no sidewalk, on Piney Elementary on Freedom Ave. A lot of the kids come from the community just south of that. They take a shortcut to the backside of the elementary school. But again, it's the way for them to do that. Is it the appropriate way for them to do that? And if they're a quarter mile away, which, I am, but my son, when he was in third grade, would have to take a bus, a quarter mile, because again, there's just no sidewalks. And again, that's Freedom. The issue.
Commissioner Rothstein, that's a county road.
It is.
Not in Sykesville.
It is not in Sykesville. It's in
Yeah,
Eldersburg.
so who would look for the grants for that? The county? The school system? Who has to initiate something like that?
If it's a municipality, they may be able to qualify. There's a
It's
lot of
not.
conditions of the different grants.
It's
I think
Eldersburg.
Yeah, I think it'd be worthwhile. We can kind of
Okay.
look at the specific
Good question.
case and show you sort of the portfolio of grants to talk about what the options could be.
If I may, the county has successfully administered Safe Routes to School grants in the past
Right.
for these types of sidewalk connections. And so I think
Yeah.
depending on the specific geography, we can figure out who the preferred applicant would be
Right.
for that type of connection. But I do want to commend the county on, the ability to navigate through some of those federal approval
Right.
processes before
Right.
to deliver, some of those sidewalk connections. I think, I'm not sure if the one near Eldersburg Elementary was funded through that program or not.
That
but-
was Safe Routes, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes, it was
All
Safe
right.
Routes.
So I think that could be a good analog for what you would be trying to accomplish there.
Right. Yeah, so if we can follow up, that'd be great. But the issue I do want to bring up, which is very important, is the new veterans home that is scheduled to be built. They're expected to break ground in 2025 on Slacks Road in Sykesville. Slacks Road is very difficult to navigate when we're talking about a new home that's going to house 140 seniors. It's going to be another Charlotte Hall. And a third of it's being funded through the state capital projects, 2/3 being funded through federal. The funding has been in the governor's budget well, Governor Hogan put it in there, and it's still there. So it's lasted through Governor Hogan into Governor Moore's administration. So we're moving forward with it. The Secretary, DGS, commented to us when we're talking with the Secretary of VA, or MDVA now with family, about a solution to this situation. And it's pretty complex because it's on state property. So there's state property on the one side, there's state property on the other side, and it's a county road right down the middle. That county road has to be, architected in a way where there's ingress, egress into this home. We had recently, last week, a meeting with DGS and with MDVA about the home itself. But I believe you need to be a part of that, solution as well, because of what is this going to look like. I don't know the funding and all that kind of stuff. All I know is the project itself. And we were selected years ago to put it where it is. And we don't want to get that derailed, especially as they're ready to break ground in 2025. So I think you're aware of it. I think I brought it up last time. I don't know if it's gone anywhere, but it was asked, where in DGS is it? I'm like, I don't know, except the conversations I've had with the secretary and his project leads. So just wanted to throw that out there. Is there any?
Yeah, no, I was actually talking to Brian and Chris about it today and kind of getting an update. And I'm happy to help on the technical side with that process.
Okay.
As they advance and understand I think they're just trying to still lay out their entrances and everything and figure that part out. But I'll stay plugged in to that and see where I can help.
I really appreciate it.
You did bring that up at Mako. We have it recorded as an action item. We just
Right.
haven't hit
Okay.
the ground yet
Yep.
on it. So.
He brings it up about once a week.
It's a $200 million project.
Yep.
I mean, all said and done. And, 180 plus staff, which includes a lot of nurses, which benefits, again, Carroll County. Carroll County Community College has a nursing program. McDaniel just started a nursing program. There's a lot of opportunity for this community for jobs, a lot of opportunity to take care of our veterans as they duly deserve. So yeah, I do bring it up, but again, it's just a very large, we don't have many $200 million projects in the county, so don't know if we have any, but this is one of them, so I want to bring it up.
Thank you. We'll get that.
Kenny, where you want to go with this now?
So, if nothing else up here, you're ready to questions from the audience, and I don't think we need to get too formal, but if you can just say your name and where you're from, and have at it. I know this group isn't this quiet.
Yeah, you are not shy.
Yeah, so,
Use the mic so it's recorded,
We know you're loud enough.
in case we want to listen to you later.
fantastic. Thank you for having us and making us feel welcome. We had a lovely, productive meeting with Andrew and his group, and Kelly from engineering and bridge category, and that was mainly to discuss a project that has been at the forefront of my mind, anyway, and our community's mind in Sykesville, with respect to improving pedestrian safety. I think this might be the third time I brought it up here at this meeting. And it's not to say that nothing's happening, it's just to say that we all know what's going on with the funding. And the good news is that there has been some movement in the design phase, so that's great. CSX is going to be the death of me and maybe others in the room. So I hope that they will be cooperative and work together with us. Bringing that up is just because I felt I needed to, but Andrew's got it. I do just want to make one comment about what we refer to as the Dinky Trail, the Dinky train tracks It's an overpass over Spout Hill Road, right in the middle of our municipality, an extension, if you will, of 851 of our main street. And it's something that I myself and hundreds and hundreds of others drive under in one direction and then back the other in the evenings. I don't know the last time it's been tested for its structural stability. So there's that concern, but along the same lines, we would like to see a Rails to Trails project, as Mount Airy has been working on for so many years, and the good news that was announced today. So I'm very happy for Mayor Hushauer and his community. Nobody wants to claim ownership. It took us years almost to find out who in the state, what department owns the bridge. It was Department of Mental Health and Hygiene at the time, as it was called, owned it. It connects the former Springfield State Hospital grounds, a portion of what is the Springfield State Hospital grounds, with the railroad in downtown Sykesville. And it would serve as a connection for our young children to get a safe way to and from school, from one part of town to the Sykesville Middle School, which is also within the municipality boundaries. And so we've identified, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, that DGS has decided that it is theirs, and they would love to give it to us, and I would love to take it. But I obviously need to make sure that it's safe and sound so that we can do with it what we wish to do with it before that happens. So I guess to those of you that are here today, and to the Deputy Secretary, if you could guide us in some fashion or form, if somebody could just get us a bridge survey, a structural integrity survey, and let us know if it needs anything. And because people are under it every day, I'd just like to also go over it. So that's all. Thank you.
Thanks for that, and appreciate you tracking down the ownership. I think the last time I had the pleasure of talking about this one, I forget if someone in this room or someone else drew a very accurate map for me, I think on a napkin, kind of explaining exactly where it is. I might still have it in a notebook from a previous meeting, but good to know the ownership, and we can certainly follow up with you on the structural side of things, Will and his team. Mm-hmm.
How's it going, everybody? Christopher Miller from City of Tawnytown Mayor out there. Just want to say thank you to the commissioners for including our bypass on last year's priorities. Hopefully we can continue keeping it on there in the mention of it. I want to say thank you to District Engineer Radcliffe's team for helping us on with pedestrian issues, issues with as far as our lights go out there and the crossing walk alert there in the middle. Sorry, I've had a long week. The only other thing I had to mention was that, as you're communicating with the city and as you're working on city action items, please, make sure to include our staff on that. I know elected officials might reach out for questions, comments, or information, but as far as action items go, I really need that to, pass through my city manager so that everybody's kind of aware of what's going on. And again, just hopefully, Tawnytown elected official, keep the bypass in your minds. Hopefully you guys are looking forward to it one day, so have a good one.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity. I guess I'm the only mayor that's going to be asking for money, so thank you guys. Yesterday.
Well, then you get it all.
Huh?
Then you get it all.
Hey, I'm write that down. I'm good with that. I just want to thank Andrew and his team, Scott, Eric, and Jeff. They met with me and my town staff yesterday. We had some concerns and issues about our streetscape project that has been in the queue for 10 years. Some of you may know Dave Cohn's name. He, in 2014, asked me if we wanted to get back in the queue because the project had stalled in the late 90s. I said yes, took it to the council, they agreed, and we've been working basically start of January 2015, and we've gotten to certain degrees of design, and now we're at 85%. So the issues and concerns were handled great by Andrew and his team yesterday. And unfortunately, Andrew doesn't have the check writing ability to fund the project. And I know his team wants to see projects completed. And this project's been going, as I said, for 10 years. And the agreement that we had the understanding is that if the town of New Windsor upgraded the sewer lines and the water lines, then State Highway would come in and finish their responsibilities of new sidewalks, curbs, ramps, ADA compliancy, and new paving. And probably, we've already done the lining of the sewer lines. The water line project should be done either in November or December of this year. And my hope was that State Highway would come right in behind that and be ready to put it out to bid. And I understand the funding aspect of it. And this is not just a wow factor, as I've talked about, because some of the design has retaining walls along certain parts of the streets because people have to actually walk in the State Highway to mow their yards in the 400 block of High Street and the 300 and 400 block of Main Street. We've heard safety multiple times here. We've heard economic growth multiple times and fatalities. The last thing I want is one of my residents be mowing their yard, slip, trip, and fall into the path of a vehicle. I'm trying to be proactive to get this project completed sooner than later so that we're not reactive to a disaster. And, you know, the integrity of both parties was, like I said, we do our part, State Highway comes in and does theirs. We've done our part. And I'm asking, and it's $4.5 to $5 million project. Sounds like a lot of money for us. On a state level, it's probably one of the smaller projects. And I understand the funding for the next couple of years is not good, but we've done our part. And, you know, to put it simple, enough is enough, and we need to see the State Highway Administration come up with the funding.
No, I appreciate your comments and, you know, appreciate the partnership and your kind of patience in working through the different phases of things, and do want to commend everyone involved in the progress that's been made, you know, over the past few years, and just getting the scope to a point where everyone is, you know, kind of in alignment there on that and advancing the design further. And, you know, appreciate your comments on thinking, you know, about the scale of the investment, because, you know, some of the projects that we talk about when we talk about the Key Bridge, yes, that's a, you know, a nearly $2 billion investment, and that's one that thankfully we have outside of the TTF right now. We're going to be able to manage that with a lot of federal investment. When looking at the trust fund and the limitations on state funds, we really are having to take that fine-tooth comb approach of looking at not just expenditures of the millions of dollars, seven-figure range. We're looking at things down in the six-figure range and below, and having to make some really tough decisions about funding even at that scale. So I don't want you know, my comments to come across that I do not hear what you're saying about the safety and the priority of this investment. But I just, you know, for those of you here today, for those who may be, you know, listening in, we are really having to take that look and look at projects that, you know, I would love to say we can find the change between the couch cushions of the TTF to advance these things further. But where we are right now is that we're looking across the board at our different system preservation and state of good repair pots of money to see how we can stretch them as far as we possibly can, because we really are very limited on the state fund side of things. So, you know, Will's team will be working between now and when we publish our, you know, our final CTP come early next year, to see, you know, where we are able to keep things moving and where some things are unfortunately going to have to go on pause for a little bit. But, you know, your advocacy is always appreciated, and I do just want to thank you again for your partnership on this one.
You know, thank you for listening. And, you know, as Andrew knows, I think outside the box constantly. He shakes his head a lot of times. But, you know, even if it's done in phases, you know, we do High Street and then, you know, Main Street, cut it, the funding down, that it could be done over a 2 or 3 year period. And, you know, just some options.
No, and I think that those concepts keep them coming, right? And I just want to thank you again for, you know, acknowledging the work that you all have done on the local utility side of things. And right, it is always our preference to be able to implement things seamlessly, because we know that construction disturbance can impact, you know, your constituents as well as those moving through towns. I know that that's been felt by other, municipalities in the county. So just want to acknowledge that, and, you know, that you have our empathy, and it is our preference to be able to move things through as seamlessly as possible.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. And Roberta, thank you for the funding issue.
And if I might just add to what Mayor Roop said, New Windsor is in the district that I represent. And he's very accurate when he says the traffic and people having to go into the street to mow lawns. New Windsor is a community that really is a walking-based community where everything that goes on happens on Main Street, happens in the downtown. And to echo what he said, if you can keep it on the radar, and even if there's a potential for phasing it in over time, I understand that it can't all happen at once, but I certainly want to second what he said and to also advocate for the citizens that I serve there. Walking downtown New Windsor can get dicey sometimes, and I just would very much appreciate that staying on the radar.
No, absolutely. Definitely will stay on the radar. And I think one of the things that we can lose sight of sometimes is when we have a larger capital project that we're all trying to advance, and not losing sight of, where we've got the short-term opportunity for improvements, and also knowing that you have that constant connection with Andrew and his team at the district. I have the utmost confidence in him that he will, keep this on his radar and also look for opportunities to make any short-term adjustments that may be beneficial to the town. So you have an A+ team looking over you.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Good afternoon. I'm Marcia Herbert, President of the Carroll County Board of Education. First of all, I need to thank the county for getting that project started at Westminster High School for the new sidewalks there, and we really appreciate that. It was duly noted about Manchester Valley, and we were very lucky that day. And I will also bring up the other school, and Dr. McCabe will know that in 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else? They must be happy with everything you said.
Well, I thank you so much for having us here today, and let's not let it last till next summer, the next time that we connect. We are always here. We're always here to answer your questions, take that feedback, and just want to thank you again for having us.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson, will you follow up with me on the transit funding? Because I really would like to talk to you more about that.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Should we expect to see no?